So if you recall, in the previous lecture we have started looking at what the concept of limit is, limit of a function of two variables. So we defined the concept of limit for a function f, which is defined in a domain D in R2, taking values in R. Suppose P is a point, say that in a neighborhood of the point P, the function is defined. Okay. Then we define what is called the limit of the function at the point AB to be equal to L if for every sequence xn, yn converging to AB, of course not equal to AB, the sequence f of xn, yn should converge to the same limit L. Or we had also epsilon delta definition that given any epsilon bigger than 0, there is a delta, say that whenever in a deleted neighborhood of AB of radius delta, fxy minus L should be at the most a distance of epsilon, right? And then we said that if the limit exists, then it is independent of the path. That was the theorem we proved. That means if this limit is equal to L and gx is a path such that limit of gx as x goes to a is equal to b, that is same as saying that the path passes through the point AB, then limit of the function along this path, so f x y, instead of y you write gx, so limit of x going to a of f x gx is also equal to L. So that was corresponding to the one variable definition that if the limit exists, then the left limit and the right limit also exists. And in function of two variables, if the limit exists at a point, then along every path through that point, the limit exists and is equal to L. And that gave us a test, so that is a necessary condition. So like every necessary condition, it gives us a result about non-existence or non-happening of that concept. So non-existence of a limit, if you are able to show that for a function along one path, the limit does not exist, or at least there are two paths which are different and the limits are two paths which are converging to the passing through the same point, and the limits are different, then the limit will not exist. There is something similar to one variable. The limit does not exist at a point if either the left or the right does not exist and both exist but are not equal, right? So the corresponding thing for two variables, and that we had seen in an example to illustrate that this is useful concept. Now we can try to extend this notion of limit. See, in one variable, we define the notion of limit for n points differently, right? At n points, only one-sided limit is possible. Similarly, for functions of two variables, depending on the neighborhood, the limit of the function will be defined. Let us just recall that we have defined limit just now for in a neighborhood. If a function is defined in a neighborhood, then we define the limit of a function of two variables. It is not necessary the function should be defined at that point, and actually it need not be defined at many points near that point, right? When we want to approach that point AB. So at least we want one sequence in the domain which should approach the point AB, right? There should be at least one path approaching that point. Then only you can predict a value for the function. So such points are normally called limit points. So let us define formally what are called limit points of sets. So take a point AB in R2, look at a ball of radius R, deleted ball, so B is 0, AB, R, and suppose it intersects D. That means what? We are looking at a point D, we are looking at a point AB in R2, say that if I take any deleted open ball around that point that intersects the set D, then that point is called a limit point for the set D. So we are defining limit point for a set D in R2. So given a set D in R2, we call a point AB. This point AB is in R2. This need not be a point in the domain in the set D, right? For example, in a function of one variable, if you take an open interval, right, then the point left end point, say open interval is AB, then the left end point is not a point of the set D, which is the open interval AB. But that is what is called a limit point, because if I take any open interval around that point, left end point say A, that is going to intersect the interval. So similarly, for a function of in plane, given a set D, we say a point AB is a limit point of that set if every open ball, deleted open ball, intersects the set D. this intersection is non-empty. However small the ball is, it is going to intersect that set D. Then that set D is called a limit point of the set. For example, what will be a consequence of a point AB is a limit point of a set D means what? Supposing I take a open ball around that point of radius 1 over n, then there is a point of the set D inside that ball. So that means there is a point xn comma yn inside the domain which is at a distance at the most 1 over n from the point AB. So if I let this choices n go to infinity, I have got a sequence in the domain D which is approaching the point AB. That point AB need not be in the domain. Still I get a sequence from the domain D which approaches that point. So that is the idea of the limit point. It is something like the boundary points kind, you can imagine that kind of thing. So that is called a limit point. So let us look at some examples. So let us look at, for example, look at this ball at the center at 0, 0, radius 1, minus x bigger than 0. Okay? So from this x bigger than 0, so this line is not there. From this open ball, the positive part of the x-axis is removed, right? Then still the point 0, 0 is a limit point for this, even though 0 is removed, right? So what is the set D? D is this open ball, say of radius 1. So this radius is 1. Is open ball of radius 1. From here, this portion is removed. So 0, 0 is not a point of this domain, but still 0, 0 is a limit point for this domain, because at 0, 0 if I take any open ball, that is going to intersect the domain. However small the radius I may take for this open ball, still it is going to intersect. For example, any point on this axis, right? Say take point P here, that is also a limit point for this, right? Because if I take a ball that is going to intersect the domain, there are going to be points which are going to intersect this domain. So that is a limit point. For example, look at this kind of a set, a triangular kind of region where this axis is not part of the, this is not part of the domain at all, right? So it's like an infinite triangle kind of a thing. X, okay. So in this, again 0, 0 is a limit point. In fact, every point on this line is also a limit point which is not in the set. Of course, every point of the set, will that be a limit point always? Let me ask a question now. Suppose you are given a set D and you take a point AB. Will that be a limit point always? Can you say that for a subset D of R2, if I take a point inside the domain itself, will that be a limit point always? Not necessary, right? For example, I can take, say, this open ball and a point outside it, far away. So what is my set D? This open ball and a point P, far away. So D is equal to this ball union the point P. And this set, this point P is not a limit point for this set, because I can have an open ball around it which will not intersect. A deleted open ball should intersect every deleted open ball should intersect D, right? Here there are many possible. Such points, they are normally called isolated points, right? Points like these are called isolated points. So we are not going to bother much about it. But just to illustrate that a point in D is called a limit point, provided you take any open ball around that point and remove that point. So take a deleted open ball of any small radius you take, that should intersect the set D. Then that point is called a limit point for the set D. So a limit point need not belong to the set D, of course, that we have indicated. Okay? And I have also indicated that if a point is a limit point for a set, then there will be positively a sequence of points in the set D approaching that point AB, right? At least there is one way of approaching that point AB. That point AB may not be in the set D at all, but still you can approach. So there is a possibility of defining what is the limit of a function at a limit point of a set, right? Because there is a path available now. So that is the idea we have. So let us define what is called the limit of a function at a limit point. So a point x0, y0 is a limit point of a set D, and f is a function. Then we say f has a limit at the limit point x0, y0, provided right? Limit of xy going to 0, 0 is equal to L, right? And that makes sense because there is at least one path available, at least there is one sequence along which you can go to x0, y0. Clear to everybody? It is something like endpoints, okay, for intervals. So you can extend the notion of, so that is same as saying in epsilon delta definition that given any epsilon bigger than 0, there is a delta, so that whenever xy is in related, the intersection, fxy is close to L. Definition stays the same. Only we want to ensure there is a data available to predict the value. If there are no points nearby that point in the domain, then how will you predict, like the isolated points? Right? So let us look at this function fa. There should be a correction here. This is a function of two variables, so it should be fx y. Okay, the comma y is missing here. So look at the function fxy, y sine 1 over x for all x not equal to 0. Right? So what is the domain of this set? X not equal to 0. That means the whole plane minus the y-axis. Clear? That is the domain. And so 0, 0 is a limit point. The point 0, 0, though it is not in the domain, it is a limit point for the set. So I can ask what is the limit for this function at 0, 0. And that we have already seen, the limit of this function at 0, 0 exists. Okay, so that is the domain x not equal to 0. 0, 0 does not belong, but it is a limit point. And we know the limit of this as, okay, by epsilon delta method or other method, whichever you like. Okay, you can compute. Because sine is bounded by absolute value of fxy is less than or equal to y. Right? So you can take delta equal to epsilon to say the limit exists and is equal to 0. So fxy minus 0, that is less than or equal to, the absolute value is less than 1. So mod x less than delta. Right? So you can take delta equal to, so given any epsilon, you choose a delta where delta is equal to epsilon, then the limit exists and is equal to 0. So like in a function of one variable, now what is the limit here? Limit is a function at a point is taken by limits of sequences. So that algebra of limits which is valid for one variable is still valid for two variables also. So we will not prove those theorems. That is algebra of limits. F and G are functions defined in a domain D. X0 is a point which is a limit point. And if the limit of f exists, limit of g exists, then limit of f plus g exists and is equal to sum of the limits. Because all are coming from the limits of sequences. So f plus minus g, and similarly a scalar multiple of that. Product of the limits is equal to limit of the products. Limit of the product is equal to product of the limits. And similarly, if the denominator, right, the limit is not equal to 0, if this m is where g is converging to, right, g is going to m, if that is not equal to 0, then in a neighborhood it will not be 0 as in one variable, and the limit is equal to L by m. So as a consequence, a function like this, you can say the limit exists, right? You can compute the limit of this by composing. So limit of the function fxy equal to x, that exists. Limit of the function gxy equal to y, that we have already shown exists. Okay, and we know the values of the limits. So you can use that now. Limit of this will be limit of fxy, which is x, plus limit of gxy, which is y, limit of fxy minus limit of gy. So composition and this algebra of limits, so that limit comes out to be minus 3. Similarly, one variable sandwich theorem. So same theorem is valid for two variables. Same proof, there is no change at all actually. So if f is trapped between g and h in a deleted open neighborhood of a point x0, y0, and g and h both converge, both have the same limit, then the limit of what is trapped in between also exists and is equal to that common value. So that is g has limit L, h has limit L, then the function fxy, xy going to 0, 0 will have a limit L. That is the sandwich theorem. So one simple application of this, how is this useful? For example, you want to compute a limit of this, tan inverse x comma y divided by xy. Okay? That should be actually, there is no comma here. This is x into y. Okay? So let me write, this is not there. This is xy. So for this, we use an inequality which we obtained from Maclaurin series, estimate from Maclaurin series, namely for tan inverse theta by theta is bounded by this, right? So some kind of this inequality you have to obtain, and once that is obtained, then as xy, so you can put xy equal to theta and compute the limit by sandwich theorem. So that will say that limit is also equal to 1. So in a neighborhood of 0, 0, this estimate is valid via Maclaurin series for that, right? Now xy, this is your function g, this is your function h, trapped in between by sandwich theorem. So limit exists and is equal to, right, 1. So that is application of sandwich theorem. So it's all going parallel to one variable. So let us continue this idea and extend it to continuity of functions of two variables. After all, limit is the value expected of the function, right? So for a function of two variables, same definition will say a function of two variables is continuous at a point in the domain if the limit of the function at that point exists and is equal to the value of the function at that point. Same definition. Actually, this is a very general thing. Whenever on a set X you have the notion of distance, then you have the notion of limit. Once you have the notion of limit, you can define the notion of continuity. Okay. So this goes in a subject which is called a subject in mathematics called topology, where you study notion of distances and various properties of it. So it's a huge subject called topology, where this notion of distance can be extended and analyzed. So continuity, as we said, given epsilon greater than 0, there is a delta such that whenever you have a, now there is no more dilated neighborhood required, right? Because the function is to be defined at that point, right? Like in one variable. So at all points in a neighborhood delta in the domain, we should have whenever xy is close to, right? In this, that means xy is close to x0, y0 by a distance delta, then if xy is close to the value of the function at that point by epsilon. You can also have a sequential criteria for this. Okay, so that is so basic theorem about continuity of functions. D is a domain, xy, x0, y0 is a point in the domain, f and g are functions defined in the domain. Then saying that the function is continuous, I'm just rewriting that for every xy belonging to D, so distance, right? I just written in a formula. Sometimes writing ball and all that obstructs what is the actual thing to be computed. So this is the actual thing to be computed, that for all given an epsilon you have to find a delta, so that whenever xy, right, are in D with the distance from the point x0, y0 less than delta, that should imply fxy minus f at x0, y0 is less than epsilon. You can also have in terms of sequences, continuity at a point x0, y0 means for every sequence x and yn converging to the point x0, y0, f of x and yn converges to f of x0, y0. So that is continuity in terms of sequences. Then algebra of continuous functions, f and g are continuous, then f plus g is continuous at that point, right? Difference is continuous, product is continuous, and so on. So these are all standard things which we have done earlier, and same things are valid. And similarly, if the value of the function is continuous at g and the value is not 0, that means function cannot be 0 in a neighborhood of that point. So you can write f over g, that is defined in a neighborhood, and the value will be, right, f over g is continuous at that point. Similarly, for composite functions, we have already seen that if f is continuous, g is continuous, and the composite function makes sense, then the composite function also is continuous. So all the standard properties are valid. So let us not spend much time on this. And this also we have seen that if f is continuous, then the projection maps are continuous, right? We proved that the projection maps, if the limit exists for the function, then the projection maps also have the limits, and that is the value of that point. So the projection maps are continuous, both the projection maps. So given a function of two variables, there are two projection maps fixing one of the variables. If a function of three variables, you'll have three projection maps, right? Projection onto different coordinate planes, three different coordinate planes. So those are the projection maps. They all are continuous. For example, this function is continuous. You don't have to do anything now. You just say that sine is a function of one variable, that is continuous. The function x comma y goes to x into y, that is continuous. So this function is continuous, right? By using the properties of algebra and composition of, we are composing function of one variable. See, this is a composition of how many functions? One is a projection map, fxy goes to x, other projection map, fxy goes to y. Then you take the product of them, you get the function fxy going to the product of that xy. Then compose, that is a function of one variable now. X comma y goes to the product xy is a function of one variable. Then you apply sign to that. That is a function of one variable again. So you are composing a function of one variable with a function of two variables. It says still that theorem remains valid. Continuity, right? Because limit there, so f into g, composite. Same idea. So this is a continuous function. For example, let us look at this function x square y divided by x4 plus y square for xy not equal to 0, 0. So if xy is not equal to 0, 0, this is a continuous function, right? Because it is x square y, that is a continuous function of two variables. x4 plus y square, that is a continuous function of two variables, right? Numerator and denominator at points other than 0, 0 by the usual algebra and is a continuous function. But what happens at the point 0, 0, right? At the point 0, 0, we want to find whether the limit exists or not. And now just try to guess what could be the limit at the point 0, 0 if it is to exist. Yes? Because why it is infinite? Why do you guess it is infinite? The numerator has a degree you can think of is x square into y, right? So you can think it as degree is 3 of the numerator of two variables, right? And denominator is 4. So as you come to 0, 0, denominator will tend to blow. So the limit at 0, 0 probably does not exist. So how do I prove it? That the limit does not exist at 0, 0. Right? The only way is available to me is either assume the limit exists and have a contradiction, or we said that limit does not exist. We want to show this function limit does not exist. That means what? Either there is a path along which the limit does not exist, path through the 0, 0, right? So that if you move along that path, then value of f, there doesn't have a limit along that path, or there are two different paths available, right? Say that both paths point 0, 0, but the limit of the function along these two different paths is different, right? That is another way of, so let us try to think of a path through 0, 0 around which I can compute the limit. So if this degree is square, this is 3, this is 4, what shall I try to do? I want a path. So I have all guessed correctly. So look at the path y equal to, so that is a parabola. I am moving along the parabola y equal to x square. As xy go to 0, 0, x goes to 0, y is going to go to 0, 0, right? So this parabola is through the point 0, 0 in the domain. So along this parabola I am going to approach the point 0, 0 and look at the values of the function along this parabola and see what are the values. Do they converge to some value or not? So that is the basic idea. So you compute it along, so it is discontinuous at the point because of, so let us look at y equal to ax square, say, right, along this parabola. So what is the function along this? fxy, that is a over, right, because the terms of x4 will cancel out when we put y equal to x square. So if I take different parabolas, the limits are different, right? In the previous last lecture, I gave you example along the lines, different lines through 0, 0 of different slopes, right? The limit was different, so the limit does not exist. Here, instead of lines, I am taking a parabola, different parabolas along which the limits are different, and hence the limit does not exist. So no question of being the function being continuous or not, because the limit does not exist. So function is discontinuous at the point. So this is one way of proving that. Let us look at this kind of thing. Now, if you try to make a similar analysis here, at the point other than 0, 0, this function is going to be continuous, no problem, because a polynomial divided by a polynomial. At 0, 0, this degree is 2. Here that this degree is, so essentially the numerator degree dominates, right? So it goes to 0, 0 as x, y go to 0, 0. So the guess is the limit at the point x, y going to 0, 0 is equal to 0. So let us try to prove that now. We have guessed the limit L is probably 0 for this function. So given epsilon, I find a delta such that whenever, right? So it is continuous or not at the point 0, 0. So for that, what I have to do? If this is the value I expect, okay? So what I have to do? Fxy minus L, this thing I have to make small, right? Given epsilon bigger than 0, make this thing less than delta and so on. So what is this equal to? I have guessed L to be equal to 0. The function is this, so this is just xy divided by square root of x square plus y square, right? So I have to find xy such that whenever magnitude of xy, the vector xy is less than delta, I should have this quantity less than epsilon. But now look, what is the relation between mod x and square root of x square plus y square? So can I say this is less than or equal to something using that estimate? So this is less than square root of, yes? No? Minus? See, mod x is less than what? Mod x is less than square root of x square plus y square. Mod y is also less than square root of x square plus y square. So one of them cancels, there is a left out. Is it okay? So I am using the basic fact that mod x is less than or equal to square root of x square plus y square, and similarly mod y is less than the same quantity. So those estimates are useful in making inequalities. So this is what is going to be your magnitude of the vector x. So this is going to be equal to or less than or equal to delta. So you choose delta, let's say that delta is less than or equal to, so choose any delta. So given an epsilon, choose a delta which is less than or equal to epsilon, any delta. So that will give you whenever mod of xy minus 0, 0 less than delta, that will imply fxy is less than epsilon. So the limit is equal to L, which is equal to 0. Right? That is how we will prove using epsilon delta. So let us just, so that is what I have written here. So that will give you for, okay, so let us look at this function xy divided by x square plus y square. Okay, I want to compute. So once again, now what is the guess? Now the degree is same almost. So you had earlier where one was denominator was bigger, so you said probably it will blow up. Numerator, right, bigger, so it will converge. Now they are approximately, they are same actually, right? So what is the guess? Does not exist, right? Once again, because you can obviously find paths here, different paths along which limits are different. Okay, so but in this case, note one thing, that if you put y equal to 0, right? If you fix one of the variables, the projection maps are continuous for this. Because what is the projection map? At 0, right? So that is constant function 0. So if you fix one of the variables, say y equal to 0, then fx 0 as a function of one variable is identically equal to 0. Similarly, for other function, when you fix x is equal to 0, f of 0 comma y as a function of one variable is still equal to constant function 0, so limit exists and everything is fine. But limit of this or the continuity of this as a function of two variables is not true. This function does not have a limit as a function of two variables, right? So it is not continuous. So saying that we want to use the concepts of or the results proved for functions of one variable, and a function of two variables can be reduced to function of one variable by fixing one of the variables, right? But even though some properties may be true for each restricted function of one variable, the combined function need not have that property. So this is an example of a function where one variable functions are at 0, 0 have limit, but the function does not have a limit at 0, 0. Both the projection maps at 0, 0 have limits, but the function does not have a limit at 0, 0. Okay, but at least this is useful. Supposing for a function of two variables, right, when you fix one of the variable, that does not have a limit. That will automatically indicate that the function doesn't have a limit, right? So that way that result is useful. Is it clear what I am saying? You have a function of two variables and you fix one of the variables, then you get a function of one variable, right? Fixing the variable where you are computing the limit, say. So that is a continuous function. If that is not continuous, the original function cannot be continuous. So that is necessary, like all necessary conditions. If this is true, if P is true, then Q should be true. So if Q is not true, then P cannot be true. So that is the idea basically useful for this. If you recall, for functions of one variable, we had some very useful properties for continuous functions. So what are the properties? One was the intermediate value property, right? Then there was a property of every continuous function on a closed bounded interval is bounded and attains its maxima and minima, right? So all such properties, we want to see how many of these properties are true when you go to functions of 2 variables or 3 variables. So for that, the closed bounded interval, what should be the analog for closed bounded interval for in R2? What should be the corresponding thing? For an open interval, we had an open ball, right? You can think of a closed ball, but something more general actually is true. See, the idea is, if you take bounded is okay, right? A bounded interval real line is saying something is a bounded set in the plane. Intuitively, what should be called as a bounded set in the plane? Shell. Something can be included in the shell also. What he's saying is, if you want to say something is bounded, I should be able to draw a big sort of circle around it so that everything is inside. And because that big circle, everything inside is bounded, so every subset will also be bounded. So you can say that at origin, I can draw a big circle so that the set is inside, then that set I will call as a bounded set. So boundedness is not a problem. The problem comes when you want to say what is a closed set, right? Or what is a open set. For example, open interval, you want to generalize this notion to plane, saying that something is called an open set. What should be called as an open set? So let us look at open interval. What is the property that characterizes a openness of that interval? In sense, there is no boundary kind of thing, right, for an open interval. Whenever I take any point in that open interval, I can still find a small open interval around that which is completely inside that open interval. Open interval, think like a bag in which I can put any small bag inside it. So open interval, so let us look at what is open interval. So let us say this is open interval. So if I take any point, then I can still find a small open interval around that point which is completely inside this bigger interval that is given to me. That is openness. Anywhere I go, I can go as close as I want, but still there is some distance left there, right? Howsoever close I go, still I can find a small open interval around it which is completely inside. So we'll try to generalize this. Even you can do it for a subset A of line. You can define what is called an open set in the line also. So what should be called as an open set in the line? For every point A belonging to A, I should have a open interval A minus delta to A plus delta, which is inside A. So that set A you can call as a open set. And that definition now can be extended easily to plane R2, R3, anywhere, wherever there is a notion of distance. So we extend and define what is called open set in. Okay. So let us slightly modify. So look at a point in the plane, okay, which is, we say this is an interior point for that set, like an open interval. At every point you are able to find a open interval which is inside it. So that point you can call as a interior point for that set. Okay. So for any set D in R2, we say a point is an interior point if I can draw a small ball around it which is completely inside that set. Then that point in the plane is called a interior point for that set. So if every point is an interior point, then that set is called a open set. Okay. For example, the interval in the line. And what will you like to call as a boundary point for a set? Intuitive notion of, physical notion of boundary point. For example, let us look at the interval. Go back to the real line for motivation. The point A for an interval AB, you like to call A as a boundary point for the interval, open interval AB. Would you like to call that or not? Intuitively, right? There is some. So what is the property of that point A which characterizes it to be a boundary point in terms of open intervals, say? The property is that at the point A, if I take any open interval, howsoever small, that not only intersects the set, the open interval, but also has a point from outside the open interval. It also intersects the complement of that also. Right? So, physical notion of boundary, there is a sort of a house and there is a boundary wall. Why do you call that as boundary? You are standing on the boundary, and if you look this side, there is some point you can see outside the set. You're going to look inside the set, right? Howsoever close you look, there is something inside, there is something outside, right? So that is like the point, end point for an open interval. Now, if we want to generalize this, so we'll say a point is called a boundary point if every open ball has a point intersecting with A as well as with A complement. That point is called a boundary point for the set. So, for a set D, a point x0, y0 is called a boundary point if every open ball contains a point in D as well as a point in outside D. So, that is in D complement. It should intersect both. Such points are called boundary points, right? When will you like to say something is closed? Now, open and closed in terms of these interior points now. For a closed bounded interval, even a closed interval may not be bounded also, right? That point, end point A is a part of the set. Then you say it is closed, right? So, we will say a set in the plane is a closed set if it includes all boundary points. All boundary points are inside the set. They may not be always, right? A typical example is on the line, take an open interval, boundary point is A and B, they are not part of the set. But if you include them, that becomes a closed set. For example, in the plane, you take a ball, excluding the radius, I have to use the word boundary, I want you to avoid that. So look at all the points, so radius is R, look at all the points which are exactly at a distance R from the center. If you exclude those points, so look at all points which are strictly less than, distance strictly less than R, then that set, right, is not closed. Because you look at the point, distance, and you take an open ball around it, right, that point is the boundary point. Actually, those are the boundary points for the open ball. And they are not inside. So if you include them, that becomes a closed set. Okay? And bounded we have already seen. So what is the open set? All points are interior points. Okay? So probably if you want, we can give, for example, this is a point is an interior point if there is an open ball which is inside the set. This is the interior point, and this will be something like a boundary point. If I take howsoever small the ball I take, at any point, if I take a small ball, it has a point from inside as well as from outside. So these points are all boundary points. If all the boundary points are part of the set, then you say the set is a closed set. If all the points are open, right? If all the points are interior points, then you say the set is open. Probably, if you just want to understand, can you think of an example of a set in the plane which is both open and closed? Shall I leave it, this question to be thought about? A single point is a closed set. Why it is closed? Why it is open if it is open? A single point is an open set? It is not open, singleton. It is closed? Single point in the plane, is it a closed set? Why? Singleton is a closed set. Why? I think, let me not give the answer, because these are simple questions which will help you to understand open sets and closed sets. So think about it. If you want to discuss, you can catch me anytime, okay, to discuss these things. So try to think, are there subsets, for example, in the real line, or even in the real line, which are both open and closed? So this is the way to learn mathematics. You generate your own questions and I'll try to answer those questions. You can discuss among yourselves. But at least some examples of open and closed sets. So open if every point is an interior point. Closed if every boundary point is inside the set. Bounded, we have already said, a set is bounded if a big ball includes it, okay, of some radius. That doesn't matter. So let us look at some examples. Look at the line x-axis or the y-axis. Or it should be in R2, it should be coordinate x-axis or y-axis. Is the x-axis a closed set? as a subset of R2. As a subset of R2, is it a closed set? X-axis as a subset of R2. To verify it is a closed set or not, what you have to verify? All its boundary points should be inside the set. What are boundary points for the x-axis? We have to find that. That means we have to look at points in the plane which have the property. So let me draw. So this is my x-axis in the plane. I have to look at points in the plane. So this is a point in the plane. It will be a boundary point provided if I take any ball around it, that should intersect the set as well as the complement of it. It obviously intersects the complement of the line, but does it intersect the set? That is x-axis? No. So this is not a boundary point. So now you can guess what are the boundary points for the set x-axis? The line itself, right? Because this is the only possibility. If we slightly go above or down, even if I go slightly above, that point will not be a boundary point because I can have a small, right? Or so small, I will have a small ball which does not intersect the line because there is some distance. I can find that radius. So every point on the x-axis is a boundary point for that set. So does the set has all boundary points inside it? What are the boundary points for x-axis? Only x-axis, and they are all part of it. So this is a closed set. X-axis is a closed set. Is it bounded? No, it is not bounded because I can, however large ball I take, there will be some part of x-axis which goes outside. So it is neither, it is closed but it is not bounded. Is it open? Is x-axis as a subset of? So what is openness? Every point of that set is an interior point. That means what? At every point, I should be able to draw a small ball which is completely inside the set. But no point is an interior point because whatever point I take and take a ball around it, that is bound to go outside. So no point of it is interior point. So it is not a open set. Even if one point is not interior, then the set is not a open set. So this is not a open set. So this is x-axis is not open, not bounded, but it is closed. Right? Okay. Let us have some more examples. For example, the annulus, you look at the annulus ring where I am excluding this part of the circle and I am excluding that part of the circle. Right? So both the things are excluded. This red thing is not part of the domain and this is not part of the domain. Only the green part is the. So do you think this is it bounded? Clear? It is a bounded set because it is inside circle, big circle. Okay, fine. Is it closed? So let us look at the boundary points. Even if one boundary point is not part of the set, then the set is not closed. Right? For example, look at this point. This is a boundary point for this set. Why? Because however small a ball around this point I take, there is a point which is outside, a point which is inside. It intersects both the set and complement. So every point on this red circle is a boundary point. Similarly, this has the boundary of this annulus open thing, right, is two circles, the inner one and the outer one, and they are not part of the set. So this is not a closed set. Is it open? Is this annulus portion open? Red things not included. Yes? Clear to everybody it is open? Because wherever I give you a point, even if I give you a point very close, I can still have an open ball. There is an open ball which is inside it. So every point of it is an interior point. So it is an open set. It is not closed. It is bounded. Okay?
In the real line, if you have closed interval, closed from 0 and open at 1, union 1, open 1 to close 2.
You want to go to particular examples now? Okay. I will discuss only one example. Yes? Close at 0?
Open at 1.
Open at 1.
Union
Yes.
at 1, closed at 2.
Close at? Okay.
So this is a closed set or is it a
What is your guess?
Closed.
He says it is closed. Anybody else would like to say something? Is it closed or open? So this point is 2. Yes, one more guess I want. Whether or somebody who should either second his opinion that this is a closed set or contradict it. At least one person. Yes? Yes. He says it is closed. You say agree yes or no? He says no. Why do you say it is closed?
Because if you take one, it is you take any.
Take the point 1. Let us take to what your choice. Point 1. The point 1 is a point in the x-axis or in plane wherever you want to look at it. Is this a boundary point or your interior point?
Interior point.
For? Very well. Let him. Okay, I agree with what you are saying. Is it an interior point? Yes. Why? Interior point has to be a part of the set first of all. If you want to say it is open.
It is not an interior point. It is not a boundary.
So, and it is not part of the set. So, it is neither open nor closed. Is it? Yes? That doesn't affect. For example, let me take this one. Union of 2 open intervals. Right? Common points are not included. Is this an open set? Take 2 intervals side by side open. To check it is an open interval, what I have to, it is the open set, what I have to check? Take any point in that set, that should be a interior point. So take any point in this union. Take any point and can you draw a small ball which is inside that set? No? Yes? No? Okay. Let me draw again. So let me take any point. Let us take a point in this part. Okay? Here. I can draw an open ball which is completely inside the set. If you want very precise, let me call it 0, 1 and 2. It doesn't matter where are these intervals actually. Right? 2 neighboring intervals, right? Or if they are both open, their union is going to be a open interval. Even they need to be close. You can take it anywhere, like this. Any 2 intervals anywhere. Take their union. That is again a open set. Because take any point, either you will take a point here or you will take a point there. And this will always be an interior point. Right? So it doesn't matter. Now let me not go into discussion on this because then I will be leaving something else. Whatever you want to discuss, you can come later, we can discuss. But what I am saying is, such kind of things, so try to do it yourself. Try to make your own examples. Intersect two open intervals, intersect one closed interval with an open interval and see whether that is open or whether it is closed or not. Experiment. Okay? If you have a doubt, come back to me. Right? But the essential idea is, a set is open, at every point you can draw a small open ball which is inside the set, still inside. Right? And a set is closed, if you can think its complement should be an open set. Outside of that is open set. That is another way of looking at what is a closed set. It is equivalent way of saying a set is closed if its complement is a open set. That one can prove, but let me not go into it here. Okay? So our idea is not going to describing these sets, openness and closeness. That is what comes in a subject called topology. Okay? So let us not go too much into it. But if you want to discuss, come, we'll discuss it. No problem. So this is a set which is open and bounded. If you include the boundaries, then they become closed and bounded, right? If both the circles are included, that becomes closed and bounded like this. Okay. So there are many more examples like this. Let me not go into all of them. But the theorem that we want to state is, if a function is continuous and the domain is a closed bounded set, now interval is no longer required, right? You can say if a domain is a closed bounded set, then a continuous function is always bounded and attains its maximum and the minimum inside that domain. Like function of one variable. There it was closed bounded interval, specifically we said, right? But actually it is true for any closed bounded set. Okay? So this is bounded and attains maximum and minimum. So that is what it is stated here. Okay? A sense of the theorem is Important thing is close bounded. The set should be close bounded, domain should be close bounded, and function should be a continuous function. Okay. Of course, domain is close bounded, function is continuous, implies it is bounded, but that does not mean that if a domain is not close bounded, the function cannot be bounded. Function can still be bounded. A constant function is always bounded, whatever be the domain, whether closed, open, bounded, doesn't matter, right? So such things shouldn't confuse that. So here is another example. Okay, that if the function is not continuous, even if the domain is close bounded, it need not imply the function is bounded. So that we have already seen examples in one variable also. So, but it's continuous but not bounded. For example, the function x over y in a domain where y is not equal to 0. The domain is not a domain. Y not equal to 0. You are just removing, right? One axis is being removed, right? Y equal to 0, x-axis is removed. Y-axis is removed, sorry. Okay, so this is not bounded. Function being, without being, that I have already said, it could be a constant function, for example, or a function like this. Domain is not close bounded, but still the function, say trigonometric function, or a constant function will do a job. Just a constant function will be continuous as well as bounded. I think this is the right time to stop. Maybe there are 1 or 2 minutes. If you just want to ask something more about, shall we, people want to ask something about closed and bounded sets, closeness or something, then we can spend 1 minute. I think you have asked enough questions. Somebody else wants to ask, yes? Whole plane R2. Is it, okay, good idea, good question. The whole line, okay, it is not bounded. In the line itself, in the R itself, it is not bounded. Is it open? Yes. Is it closed? Is it closed, the line? How will you check something is closed or not? This doesn't help. There is no boundary point. So no question of being part of the set. There is no boundary point. So, what is the set of boundary points? The empty set. That is part of R. So the whole line is closed as well as open but not bounded. Clear? The whole plane as a subset of plane itself. Is it open? Plane, is it open? Yes? At any point, you can draw an open ball which is inside the plane. So every point is an interior point, so it is open set. It is not bounded, of course, obviously. Is it closed? Same problem that you are facing in real line. Is it closed? No? Why not? No boundary point, so no question of being inside or outside. Right? A set may or may not have boundary points at all. Who says every set should have a boundary point? We do not say that. For a set D in R2, we said a point x0, y0 is called a boundary point if ... Right? If for no point this property is true, that means what? There are no boundary points. That means the set of boundary points is empty set, which is part of the set. Right? For example, let us take the right side of the plane. I am excluding y-axis and the left side, that is excluded. I am looking only the right side. Y-axis also is removed and the left of all that is also removed. Is that set open or closed? Open. Is it closed? A set could be both open and closed, possibly. Right? But this is not closed because the y-axis is the boundary, right? That is not part of the... So if I include that in the set, then it becomes closed. So if I look at the set where x is bigger than or equal to all the points x, y, where x is bigger than or equal to 0, then it becomes a closed set. It is closed but not bounded. Anything else? Some particular example somebody would like to discuss? 1 minute. Yes? Probably let me come back to union of two open intervals, or take in the plane Take one ball here, take another ball somewhere else, open balls. Each open ball is an open set. Is that okay for everybody? Each open ball, geometrically that ball, center somewhere and draw a radius, right, less than r. That is open set. Boundary is precisely equal to r. That is a boundary. If I include that, that is a closed, that's why we call it as a closed ball. If I include that boundary also, that becomes a closed set, right? So if I take an open ball here and an open ball here, and take the union of these two as a set, is that an open set? It is open because take any point in that set, either the point will be in this ball or in this ball. If it is here, I can draw an open ball which is inside that ball. Or here, I can still draw something, right? Now let me just generalize it. Suppose A is an open set and B is an open set. What about A union B? Like, keep in mind, open ball here, open ball here. So make this as open set. You never use the fact that this is a ball. You only used every point is a interior point. Here also you use the fact only that every point is a interior point. So you have an open set and an open set and take their union, that is again going to be a open set. Finite union of open sets will be an open set. Why 2? You can take 3, 4, 5, 6. What about infinite? Infinite union of open sets is still open. Same reason. Take a point in the infinite union, it will belong to one of those sets, right? And that set is open. So there will be open ball inside that. So it is in the union also. So arbitrary union of open sets is again open. Now you can think about. So this is how you should experiment. You see, the idea is you defined a concept about sets. This is nothing to do with our subject, but general philosophy, you defined the concept of a subset of R2 to be something, open, close, blah, blah, blah. Now, on sets, there are operations. Possible operations on sets: union, intersection, complement, right? Subtraction of one set from another. Now you ask whether that property is true, preserved under these operations or not. So this is how you can ask questions, whether that property is true or not. We proved something about continuous functions. Functions, right? We defined a property about functions being continuous. Now, on functions, how many operations are possible? You can add functions, you can multiply functions, scalar multiply function, divide a function, compose a function. I want to know, under all these operations, whether the property of continuity is preserved or not. So that is how mathematics is developed. On a set, certain thing is defined, what are the possible operations on that thing, and you see whether that property is preserved under those operations or not. That's how theorems come out, right? So concept of open sets, closed sets, you can experiment whether under these various properties, union, intersection and so on, is fun kind of thing. Sitting in a bus, A is closed, B is closed, is A intersection, B closed, mentally try to work it out. Picture. Okay, let me stop.